Bonjour, merci à toutes et à tous de nous rejoindre pour notre briefing en direct sur EBS. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le vendredi 27 mars. Avant de passer la parole à mes collègues pour une série d'annonces, je veux saluer le vote favorable du Parlement hier sur les propositions de la Commission pour une initiative d'investissement en réponse à la crise du coronavirus et un deuxième vote sur les nouvelles règles sur les créneaux horaires pour les compagnies aériennes. Ce vote du Parlement intervient seulement une semaine après que les États membres ont également donné leur feu vert à ces propositions. Je salue donc non seulement ces accords, mais aussi la rapidité du Parlement et du Conseil qui ont étudié et voté ces propositions en à peine 2 semaines. Voilà, j'appelle maintenant Balázs pour une annonce sur les ressources additionnelles venant du budget européen pour faire face à la crise actuelle.
Indeed. Good afternoon. Today, the European Commission has proposed a draft amending budget to increase financial support for repatriation flights and the rescEU medical stockpile, as well as for a number of other operations. To begin with, regarding coronavirus support. 45 million euro will help the EU civil protection mechanism coordinate further repatriation flights. So far, more than 2,300 citizens have been brought back thanks to EU civil protection support. The budget of the rescEU medical stockpile will increase to 80 million euro. This will boost resources to procure more ventilators, protective masks, and essential medical gear. Now, moving on to other budgetary areas. 350 million euro of migration management assistance will be made available to Greece. The European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control will receive 3.6 million euro to enhance the capacity to identify, assess, and communicate threats to human health from communicable diseases. 100 million euro will go to Albania to help the country recover from the devastating earthquake of late last year. And finally, 3.3 million euro of additional funding will be provided for the European Public Prosecutor's Office. This comes on top of extra funding announced earlier this year, which means that overall, EPPO will receive an increase of almost 50% for 2020 to ensure a swift launch of operations.
Merci Balázs. J'appelle maintenant Daniel pour une annonce importante dans le domaine du commerce extérieur.
Merci, Eric. The European Union and 15 other World Trade Organization members agreed today to establish a contingency appeal arrangement for trade disputes. The goal is to have a system in place to solve trade disputes among these partners, despite the current paralysis of the WTO appellate body. The European Union has been a leading force in this process and are an example of our strong and unwavering support for a rules-based trading system. A press release is out with some additional details, together with a joint statement by the WTO members involved in this initiative. In the press release, there is a quote by Commissioner for Trade Phil Hogan, inviting other WTO members to join this open arrangement. As we've always said, this is a stopgap measure to be in place as long as the appellate body is not fully functional. We expect today's agreement to be officially notified to the WTO in the coming weeks, once the respective WTO members complete their international procedures, after which it will become operational.
Merci Daniel. Et pour finir, il est évidemment important en ces périodes de confinement de rester non seulement actif mais créatif. Et sur cette note, j'appelle Suzanne pour vous présenter une campagne dans ce domaine.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The European Commission has launched the hashtag Creative Europe at Home, a social media campaign running on its Creative Europe accounts on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The aim is to crowdsource and highlight great cultural content and activities happening in the community of the Creative Europe program. The initiative addresses culture lovers currently confined at their homes and gives them access to a wide range of cultural production. The European Commission has asked its beneficiaries of the Creative Europe program to post their online cultural activities with the dedicated hashtag Creative Europe at Home. And as you can see in the back, several have already used this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, with that, we can pass on to the questions which we received today by 11. And just pour mémoire, I would ask you all to understand that we take on any given day only the questions which we have received until 11, because in terms of organization, that is the time we need in order for everybody to become aware, to organize the questions and to decide who is going to take which question. I will obviously start today with the questions related to the European Council. The first one comes from Frédéric Simon from Euractiv. The European Council has asked the Commission to start preparing a comprehensive recovery plan integrating the green transition and digital aspects. When will the Commission produce its first draft, and will it include green conditions for recovery aid dispersed at EU level, for example, on the car and airline industry? Thank you for this question, Frédéric. Well, obviously, while we remain, of course, focused on the immediate response to the coronavirus crisis at the moment and supporting both people and health systems, it's true that the European Council stated last night that it is time for us to start preparing the measures necessary to get the EU back on the path to sustainable growth. The heads of state or government underlined, indeed, that the green transition and the digital transformation must be part of this recovery plan. And obviously, the Commission strongly welcomes this statement, which makes clear the member states' understanding that these policies are key drivers of European jobs and economic growth. So indeed, the Council has tasked the President of the Commission and the President of the Council to start work on a roadmap accompanied by an action plan, and we will do this immediately. It is also obvious that it is too early to talk about when this will be presented, or indeed the specific elements of this roadmap and action plan. But having said that, the Commission stands firmly behind its political guidelines. And I would recall what the President said when she presented the European Green Deal in December. She said that this is our growth strategy. And in addition, our strategy for a digital transformation creates new opportunities for businesses and for the development of new technology and infrastructure. And it is a strategy that will work for all and try to put people first. Finally, as the President also made clear following the leaders' video conference last night, this crisis shows how crucial it is to have a new European budget that will support investment and an economic recovery, and this can be achieved through an ambitious multi-annual financial framework. I now move to two questions which we have received today on the issues which were debated yesterday at the European Council. The first is from Caroline Beisel from Süddeutsche Zeitung, and the second one is from Tommaso Galavotti from ADN Kronos. The question from Caroline, and I will take them together. After yesterday's European Council video call, many Italians voiced their anger about some member states not wanting to do enough to help get through this crisis. Are Italians right to be angry, and how does the Commission react to that? The question from Tommaso goes a bit in the same direction. Tommaso, I'm going to shorten it because your question is very long. But the gist of it was that the EU heads of state and government wouldn't have managed to find an agreement on measures to counter the consequences of the outbreak of COVID-19. And does the Commission think that it is possible to put the debate at a more technical, factual level to remove the political poison which is currently attached to the ESM in Southern Europe and to Eurobonds in the North? Well, what I would answer to that is that this is obviously not the first crisis that the European Union is going through. We have been in similar situations before, and we know that member states obviously have their own, sometimes diverging views on issues of policy, on how to solve problems, on how to move forward. At this point in time, everybody and I say everybody, agrees that the economic response to date has been both quick and effective, and that it is extremely helpful in the context that we are, and that we need to look together at how to move forward. It has tasked the Eurogroup, and we will come back to that at a later stage, perhaps, to come up with proposals in the next 2 weeks on how to move forward. And indeed, as I mentioned in the previous question, it has tasked the President of the European Council and of the Commission to come forward with a recovery plan. But what is clear is that there is no predetermined path ahead. Who can actually say for sure what is the best way ahead? It is normal that at this point in time, member states, heads of state and government, the European institutions are debating. This is what the European Union is about. This is how it solves crises. This is how it moves forward. And so I think that we all need to remember we need a bit of time in order to come to terms with all of the dimensions of the crisis, in order to be able to come with the appropriate solutions to solve the crisis. And we hear as well very often that there would be a lack of solidarity in the European Union. I think that member states are showing solidarity. We have seen very tangible examples of this. I am sure there will be more tangible examples of this, just like the European Union is showing solidarity with other regions of the world that are facing the same crisis as we are. What we need to do at this point in time is to allow debate, allow discussion, and make sure that we give all of those involved the time in order to come up with the right proposals. On that note, I now move to another series of questions for Stéphane. Stéphane, are you with us?
Yes. I'm totally with you.
Exactly, very good. You're watching my back, that's great. So a first question, in fact, two questions on procurement, one from Georg von Harasch for Channel 4 News, and a related question from Jim Brunson from the FT. I will read the one from Georg. The UK says it did not receive the invitation to join the joint tender for medical equipment. Can the Commission confirm how the UK was informed? On procurement generally, have contracts now been signed, and if so, for what equipment? What quantities and delivery date? But let's focus first on the question on the UK. Jim Brunson's question was in the same vein. How does the Commission respond to UK claims that a communication failure was responsible for it not participating to the joint procurement of ventilators?
All right, thank you. Thank you indeed on these questions for the UK. First, the UK is a signatory of the joint procurement agreement and is therefore welcome to participate in any joint procurement launched under the agreement during this transition period. Now, the possibility to launch and take part in EU procurement procedures, but also the member states' needs for personal protective equipment have been discussed several times in the meetings of the Health Security Committee where the UK participated. At these meetings, the Commission stressed its readiness to further support countries with the procurement of medical countermeasures if needed. So member states and the UK had the opportunity to signal their interest to participate in any joint procurements, also via the early warning response system. Finally, the Commission wants to stress again, as it has already done in the past, that the UK is most welcome to join any future procurement launched under the joint procurement agreement during the transition period. On the bids, perhaps,
Yes.
on the state of the bids? Yes, on the state of the bids. Well, we're working 24/7 on these bids. in particular to make sure that the contracts for the joint procurement procedure on the personal protective equipment can be signed as quickly as possible. With regard to the ongoing joint procurement procedure for ventilators, we have received bids yesterday evening. The deadline was yesterday evening, and we are now analyzing them again, working 24/7 to speed up the procedure as much as possible.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let us move to another question for you from Odile Harvey, Radio Nord-Bretagne. La France a déjà organisé quelques transferts de malades par voie aérienne ou ferroviaire entre régions. Le président de la Fédération hospitalière vient de lancer un appel à coopération en organisant des transferts internationaux au sein de l'UE et même au-delà. Comment la Commission peut-elle répondre à cet appel à une coopération et une solidarité hospitalière accrue, régionale, européenne et internationale?
Oui. D'abord, la Commission salue fortement la solidarité entre les États membres qui sont prêts à aider les patients venant d'États membres dont les hôpitaux sont surchargés et qui sont prêts à fournir aussi de l'équipement de protection personnelle à d'autres États membres. L'assistance médicale entre les États membres est vraiment un signe de solidarité en action que la Commission, comme j'ai dit, encourage fortement. La Commission est actuellement en train d'explorer des possibilités de modalités pratiques pour soutenir justement ces formes de coopération entre les États membres. Merci.
Parfait. Une question supplémentaire pour toi de Veronica Phillips, ORF. The association's Medicines for Europe wrote a letter to the Commission warning that the EU faces severe constraints in acquiring crucial hospital drugs needed to fight coronavirus. The association demands support as global flights to India have stopped where needed ingredients come from. How is the Commission planning to tackle this problem?
Well, the Commission is very proactive on this front. Earlier this week, President von der Leyen was in touch with the Indian Prime Minister Modi, and yesterday, Commissioner Kyriakides spoke with the Indian Health Minister. Following this call, Commissioner Kyriakides has asked member states during yesterday's coordination call with the Ministers of Health to send information about their needs on paracetamol and other active ingredients as soon as possible, so that we can follow this up as quickly as possible with India. In the meantime, our channels with India will remain open to find solutions. Thank you.
All right. Another question from Veronica for you. The Commission has just issued interpretative guidelines on EU passenger rights regulations in the context of the developing situation with COVID-19. Consumer protectors fear that the passenger rights will be limited and reduced amidst the fear of airlines going bankrupt. Are there any restrictions planned concerning compensatory payments? I know we've received quite a few questions on this in past days, so it's a good opportunity to take this again on the podium.
Okay. Well, maybe the clearest would be if I refer to something that the Commissioner for Transport, Valian, has said. She said, and I quote her now, "In light of the mass cancellations and delays passengers and transport operators face due to the corona pandemic, the Commission wants to provide legal certainty on how to apply EU passenger rights. In case of cancellations, the transport provider or airline must reimburse or reroute the passenger. If passengers themselves decide to cancel their journeys, reimbursement of the ticket depends on the type, and the companies may offer vouchers for subsequent use." Now, the guidelines that have been adopted provide this much needed legal certainty on how to apply the EU passenger rights in a coordinated manner across our union. Obviously, we continue to monitor this situation every day, 24/7. This is a rapidly evolving situation, and if need be, the Commission stands ready to take further steps. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I now have a question for Ariana. Could you update us? It's from Nathalie Segura Raventos from Agencia Catalana de Noticias. Could you update us on how much money each member state has dedicated to state aid for the coronavirus? How will the European Commission ensure that the flexibility of state aid rules does not create imbalances and unfair competition inside the EU? as some states have more resources than others.
Good morning, everyone. On 19th March 2020, the Commission adopted a temporary framework to enable member states to use the full flexibility foreseen under state aid rules. Together with the many other possibilities that already exist under the EU state aid rules, the framework enables member states to ensure that sufficient liquidity remains available to businesses of all types and to preserve the continuity of economic activity during and after the outbreak. The temporary framework provides a horizontal set of state aid rules applying to all member states. It enables them to provide businesses with the liquidity and support they need in these difficult times, based on clear criteria and linked to the needs of the particular business or sector. The framework sets out a series of clearly defined measures that can be put in place by member states to enable quick approval from the Commission. Within days from the adoption of the temporary framework, the Commission has adopted 13 decisions approving several measures by different member states under the temporary framework, such as guarantee schemes for companies and schemes to support the production and supply of medical devices and masks. The single market is our greatest asset to weather this crisis and bounce back strongly afterwards. The Commission is working closely with member states to avoid that the single market is undermined.
Thank you. I would like to come back briefly to questions related to health. Hugues Baudouin de France Info TV, Radio Classique, merci Ariana, avait une question sur la situation sanitaire dans les régions ultra-périphériques, en particulier aussi à Mayotte. Et il voulait savoir si c'était le cas ailleurs et s'il y a eu des demandes d'assistance spécifiques de certains de ces territoires. Nous ne pouvons pas répondre à cette question ici sur le podium pour le moment, mais nous reviendrons bilatéralement vers toi, Hugues, avec des éléments d'information si nous en avons. Et si d'autres journalistes sont intéressés, bien entendu, ils peuvent aussi nous contacter sur cette question. Je passe maintenant à une question liée au Brexit. Brexit, Daniel. Hi, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Hi, Eric.
Hi. So a question from Georg van Haag for Channel 4 News. The first joint committee meeting is scheduled for Monday. Can you confirm that this is now a video conference? Has the Commission received any reassuring signs that the UK is indeed implementing the withdrawal agreement, given the short timescale, particularly with regards to the Northern Ireland protocol? And I think we had another question that I do not have with me now, but which was in the same direction on the state of play of implementation of the withdrawal agreement.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Georg, for your question. I can confirm indeed that the first meeting of the joint committee will take place on Monday by conference. We have a chapeau in today's daily news on this if you need any more information on this. We have published as well the agenda for the meeting itself in full transparency. Now, as for your second leg of your question, indeed, the aim of the Joint Committee itself, amongst many other things, is to have an exchange with the UK on the state of play of the implementation of the withdrawal agreement, in particular the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland and on citizens' rights. But I would suggest that we touch base after the meeting takes place on Monday. Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. A question now for Johannes from Krzysztof Czepka from the Polish press agency PAP. I hope I pronounced that name more or less correctly. Do you have any update regarding agreements with mobile phone operators? Could you specify which operators agreed to share with the European Commission data on the locations of their users? How does the situation look in the case of Poland?
Dzień dobry, Krzysztof. Dziękuję dla pytania. We were in touch bilaterally yesterday already, as I was with many colleagues of yours at this stage. The details of the initiative announced by Commissioner Breton early this week are still being worked out, I'm afraid. But as you know, the Commission kickstarted a discussion with mobile phone operators about the provision of aggregated and anonymized mobile phone location data. The idea is to analyze mobility patterns, including the impact of confinement measures on the intensity of contacts and hence the risks of contamination. This would be an important and proportionate input for tools that are modeling the spread of the virus and would also allow to assess the current measures adopted to contain the pandemic in certain member states or in all member states. The Joint Research Centre would do the modeling and the results would then be shared with member states. So beyond that, I'm afraid I don't have much news for the moment, including on which Polish or any other operator would eventually take part in this initiative. But what I can tell you is that we want to work with one operator per member state, so to include all member states, to have a representative sample, and we are in discussions on that. Having one operator per member state also means that the aggregated and anonymized data could not be used to track individual citizens, simply because not all have the same operator. And the data would only be kept as long as the crisis is ongoing. So we will, of course, ensure the respect of the Privacy Directive and the GDPR, and you may have also seen a favorable opinion or letter by the European Data Protection Supervisor. That's all I can say at this stage.
Thank you very much, Johannes. We now move to a question which is completely unrelated to the coronavirus crisis and relates to the Nitrate Directive from Sebastian Rippert, ARD. Question for Vivian. Vivian, you are there, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Excellent.
Good afternoon.
So a question on the Nitrate Directive. Why has the Commission allowed Germany, that has not been complying with the current directive for more than 20 years, to continue with its current practice until the 1st of January 2021?
Well, thank you for that. We don't normally comment on ongoing infringement procedures, but as there was the vote today in the German Bundesrat on the revised fertilizer ordinance, we do welcome that vote. We will now analyze what has been voted, including the amendments that have been included in the text. The next step in this process is now the swift adoption and implementation of the ordinance thereafter. And let me also just remind that the Commission has a duty to uphold union law and strict environmental standards that have been agreed, and any transitional arrangements cannot affect that obligation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Let us now move to external affairs. And I have a question from Solène pour Agence Europe, en français pour Peter. Sur la déclaration Union européenne-Turquie, M. Borrell a-t-il pu informer les leaders de ses derniers contacts avec la Turquie hier soir sur la déclaration de mars 2016? Où en est-on? La déclaration peut-elle être actualisée dans les prochains jours ou semaines? Ou bien les contacts avec la partie turque sont-ils aussi en pause à cause du Covid-19?
Bonjour, oui, le travail d'évaluation de la mise en œuvre de l'accord entre l'Union européenne et la Turquie continue, est en cours toujours. Le haut représentant Josep Borrell a informé de vive voix les dirigeants européens lors du Conseil européen hier sur le travail effectué jusqu'à présent. Ils ont aussi discuté au téléphone avec le ministre turc des Affaires étrangères, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu, sur ce sujet. Et les deux, ils sont convenus de continuer le travail et de rester en contact régulier, en plus du travail qui est des contacts au niveau des experts sur ce sujet.
Merci. Une deuxième question dans le domaine affaires extérieures pour Virginie de Tony Cerda, Agence France-Presse. Hier, les États-Unis ont offert une récompense pouvant atteindre 15 millions de dollars pour toute information permettant d'arrêter le président vénézuélien Nicolás Maduro, inculpé de narcoterrorisme par la justice américaine. L'Union européenne soutient-elle cette décision des États-Unis? La décision de mettre un prix sur la capture de M. Maduro représente-t-elle un revers pour les efforts promus par l'UE visant à parvenir à une solution pacifique, négociée et intervénézuélienne de la crise dans le pays?
Merci Tony. Sur cette question, la position, laisse-moi d'abord rappeler la position de l'Union européenne qui reste claire. Une sortie durable de la crise ne peut être obtenue que par une solution politique et démocratique acceptée par tous les acteurs vénézuéliens et incluant une voie électorale négociée. Les États-Unis ont mis en place des mesures de pression progressive dans le contexte de la crise politique au Venezuela. Et nous comprenons que cette décision évoquée dans la question s'inscrit dans le cadre de cette politique. Plus généralement, le Venezuela est maintenant confronté à un énorme défi dans le contexte de la crise du coronavirus. Et plus que jamais, le peuple vénézuélien a besoin que ces acteurs politiques parviennent à un accord pour permettre qu'une aide humanitaire internationale accrue puisse atteindre le pays. L'Union européenne s'engage, d'une manière plus générale, à soutenir tous les efforts mondiaux pour endiguer le virus et aider à faire face à l'impact de cette pandémie.
Merci Virginie. Voilà, nous sommes arrivés à la fin des questions qui nous ont été posées aujourd'hui, mais permettez-moi, à la fin de cette semaine qui a été en même temps si intense et pour beaucoup de personnes, bien entendu, si douloureuse, de vous lire à nouveau un poème. Ce poème, c'est Caminante, de l'immense poète espagnol natif de Séville, Antonio Machado. Vous comprendrez tout de suite pourquoi je pense, en particulier au vu des premières questions auxquelles j'ai répondu aujourd'hui. Mais le poème dans son ensemble est magnifique, il est un peu long, je ne vais pas le lire en entier, je vais vous lire la première moitié du poème. En espagnol. Todo pasa y todo queda, pero lo nuestro es pasar. Pasar haciendo caminos, caminos sobre el mar. Nunca perseguí la gloria, ni dejar en la memoria de los hombres mi canción. Yo amo los mundos sutiles, ingrávidos y gentiles, como pompas de jabón. Me gusta verlos pintarse de sol y grana, volar bajo el cielo azul, temblar súbitamente y quebrarse. Nunca perseguí la gloria. Caminante, son tus huellas el camino y nada más. Caminante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Al andar se hace camino y al volver la vista atrás se ve la senda que nunca se ha de volver a pisar. Me encanta este poema. Tiene, por supuesto, miles de interpretaciones. Lo dedico a todos mis amigos españoles de hoy y de ayer, pero también a todos nosotros, quienes tenemos literalmente que inventar el camino a seguir y quienes un día echaremos la mira atrás. ¿Qué veremos? Buen fin de semana.